All right. How is everyone doing tonight? Peachy, you are clearly here. Jacob, good to see you again. Hey, John, you made it. Been a while, man. Good to see you. I'm going to assume the sound's working unless you all tell me something. Uh, but if you could give me a shout out and let me know the sound is working and coming through. It's been one of those days, if you know what I mean. Yeah, okay. It's it. For a second there, I was like, wait, did I go live early, like an hour early? But I didn't. How is everyone doing tonight? Actually, Cloud Gazing, I do remember you. I do very much so. As I recall, you had several good questions. So, yeah, good to see you. TC, good to see you again as well. Peachy, I am doing good. I have been busy. It's been kind of one of those downer days because all I've been doing is paperwork, and that's really not my favorite thing to do. But I think you all know me well enough to know that boring stuff like that just doesn't keep my interest, but it still has to be done. Camden, good to see you. Welcome back. Okay, so if y'all can't tell, we are still Linda-less tonight, unfortunately. Quick update, we did talk to her. She's working on computer issues. She thinks she may need a new computer. But her and I are still working very hard to get the original format, a Magickal coffee hour, up and running. So till then, I'll just hold the fort until our full-blown comeback episode. Hey, Barnoldus, welcome. Are you joining us from work again? I've noticed the last few weeks you've joined us from work. In this case, that's awesome. I'll take that as a yes. I will take that as a yes. Okay, so this week I do have a topic. And it's a topic I've been getting a lot of questions about both in Discord and through emails. And it's how do I measure my results? And what do I consider results? How do I know if I'm getting results? And, questions right along those lines. So, well, first off, the easiest thing to tell you when it comes to results, keep a journal, something, because you need to record every bit of information anytime you do a working that you can. Because the more data and information you have, the better off it's going to be to track the time period of your results, the manifestations, and what worked and what doesn't. And that's really how you refine your practice and get the results you need. Now, when we say results, what do we count as a result? Well, it depends on what your working is. Because if you do a prosperity working without any definition to what type of prosperity you're doing, you kind of have to look back every couple of weeks to every month and see, did the prosperity in your life increase somehow, some way over that period? This is my least favorite form of spell work to do because it's too generic. So I do try to do more focused spell work, try to increase prosperity in specific areas if I can. Not to say I don't like general spell work. I do. It's just harder to track it. So that said, let's say I actually want to increase my monthly income by $300. I will start my spell working in that direction, and I would actually make that notation down. And I would also write down how often I intend to repeat the spell, because sometimes the spell has to be repeated multiple times to get you to your full goal, but you still need to track its results and how it's progressing. So in that case, let's say I decided I was going to do this spell every 2 weeks. Well, at the end of the month, I would track and see where my finances are, and am I getting an extra $300 to put into savings or wherever I wanted that $300 to go at the end of every month. If the answer is yes, then I'd have to check that as successful. But even if, let's say, I only increased my prosperity to the point of $100, that tells me I'm a third of the way there. And you do have to look at the potentials of where this is coming from. Sometimes your expenses get cut, so you find an extra $100 there just because your expenses got cut. Sometimes you do get a raise. Sometimes an extra source of income starts coming in. All these different ways that they can manifest like that. Hey, Jacob, good to see you. Focus. Focus is probably the hardest thing when it comes to magic, Jacob. It really is. And that's the reason any of my students will know I constantly drill meditation is the backbone of all magic, because that's really what you use to develop your discipline and your focus skills. Um, when it comes to focus, it takes practice to build the skill up. Over the years, I've tried to find shortcuts, and the closest I've come is the astral sanctum. Because if you use your astral sanctum and build it, it's a bit more fun, so it feels like a little less work, and you're moving around your sanctum. But still, when it comes to trance work and maintaining the focus and visualization to maintain being in your astral sanctum, it can still be tedious. So the best tip I could give you would be to set up an astral sanctum and visit it often to develop that focus skill, and also work on your daily meditations and build up your time there. Those are the best shortcuts I have, and I know they're not the best. And I apologize. Elizabeth, welcome. Good to see you again. Sophia, good to see you again, too. I'm seeing a lot of familiar faces in here. Also, shout out to everyone who did donate last week during the stream with the super chat. That was very much appreciated. It's good to know you all support the work we're doing. So, well, that makes sense, Jacob. That does, because it goes back to that focus, and even to build your astral sanctum, you got to get into that meditative state. And when you're setting up that astral sanctum, you are actually in a trance state, so that focus still becomes a problem. It's just a bit more of a fun way to develop that focus skill. That's why I said it's not really a good shortcut or tip. It's just currently the best exercise that I've found. Your other option is you could do some spell work on your third eye to help open it up more, as well as spell work to start increasing your focus. Those would be options to try and help develop it faster. Because I'll admit, in the over 20 years I've been doing this, I've wanted to find shortcuts for people, especially when it comes to focus. Even for me, because I would love a nice focus trick when I'm overly hyper or tired. TC, that's actually a tricky question, but it's a good one. Because, yeah, at times you do want to be specific, but you also don't want to be overly specific to the point where you limit the ability. Because energy, like water, and that's what magic is energy, will take the path of least resistance to bring you to your goal. So the more specific you come, the more you limit how it comes to you. So my rule of thumb for this is let's say I need $300. Well, that's my focus. That's what the spell's target is. But I don't really give it a pathway on how it gets to me. I just know I need that specific amount of money or somewhere around there. Um, so it can fall a little short or a little over. I always like the over, by the way. But I don't limit how it comes to me. Now, time frame. Now, how it comes to you in time frame are two more areas you can limit it. But how it comes to me, I never try to limit that. Never. But time frame. I do look at what I would consider reasonable amount of time for a spell to deliver its results. Because let's be honest, you say you just leave it wide open, 3 years from now you get $300 and somebody's like, your spell worked. That's not real magical to me. So for something like $300, I'd give it maybe a month to manifest before I repeat the spell. But I would narrow it down to as specific as $300, and then I'd give it a 2-week to a month time frame to narrow it down further. But those are the kind of specifics I would do. I would not say I am going to win $300 in a scratch off, because you're narrowing the pathway of the energy to flow so much that it's the improbability of it reaching you increases exponentially. So you got to think of magic as kind of probability enhancement. And the more open it is, the higher the probability. But you also need to make it specific enough that you're getting what you need when you need it. So it's kind of a balancing factor there. And I hope that makes sense in that tangent I went on. Rouse, good to see you again. But that's a great question because, yeah, you can get overly specific. And in my opinion, you can get overly vague. Because if you're too vague, you'll never know if it manifested or it just was happenstance. And I've found a lot of practitioners actually prefer vague because the happenstance allows them to just not really worry about whether it worked or not, and they can just continue to do their thing. Yeah, you can use planetary days and hours to add a little extra oomph to your spell. I really like planetary hours. Most of you know I don't like waiting around too long. So if I have to wait more than a day or two to do a spell, I'm probably not going to wait. I'm impatient. But planetary hours, you can usually catch those pretty quick because they're in every day. But that's one reason I don't work with moon magic as much unless the moon just happens to be where I need it to be within the next day or two that I need to do a spell. I cannot. I'm not good at hurry up and wait. I'm not. I got work to do. I gotta go. But yeah, planetary hours are great, and planetary days are good. I do work with those, like I said, because the worst I'd have to wait is 7 days, if not less than that. Usually, in most cases, less than that. So planetary days and hours are great. I actually prefer those over moon magic all the time because they're just so much easier to get around to. Welcome, D-Chan. Good to see you. Glad to hear, Jacob. I hope it went well. I really enjoy working with Freya. She's awesome. Usually you can find them in a chart. Some apps have them. There there used to be an app on my phone. I deleted it when I didn't delete it. My phone died, but it had the planetary hours on it. And sometimes you can just run it general, and some people are more specific, like they calculate it every specific week and everything. And others, you can just find like a pre-printed chart that's like every day at this hour will have it. I want to say Conway stuck a planetary hour chart in one of her Dragon Magic books. That would actually be a really good video to do planetary hours and planetary days. I know I don't work a lot with planetary magic and don't talk about it, again, because of that impatience I have, but those are 2 things I use that would be beneficial, and I will try and do a video on that. But you can usually Google a chart on them pretty easily. Yeah, you will get really fast results with, planetary magic. Any type of magic that it's the energy that you're working with starts close to this realm tends to move faster in most people's experience because again it's got to move here to make the change here. So if you're starting with energy that's way out there, it's got to still get here, and then once it's here it starts making that change. And since planetary energies are so much closer than other astral style energies, the changes seem to come really quick. Plus, they got a lot of juice behind them to start with. What do I know about Ellen of the Ways and how to work with her? Right off, the name's not ringing a bell in my rusted head. So I don't actually know that I know a lot about that particular goddess. The name, I know that name from somewhere, but why is nothing I'm seeing here? No, I'm afraid you got me stumpered on that one. Either my brain's just rusted shut and I can't get it because I even checked Google to try and pry that box open, but I really cannot. I know the name, but I cannot recall ever working with them. So I won't be much help with you on that one, TC. I'm sorry. Uh, Cloud gazing. That's actually an interesting question because it really, when you say, do you have to? Technically speaking, you don't have to cleanse your body for any form of magic. You don't technically have to. Many traditions will actually say it's a requirement, but then that just comes down to the traditions. And I know I'm going to get a lot of flack for saying this, but me and a bunch of my associates have tested this. You don't actually have to cleanse the energy. That said, anytime you cleanse the energy of your body, even if it's just through an energetic cleansing ritual, you're going to clear out the energy and set it to a base neutral, which is going to allow you to do the magic you're doing far easier. Any energy that's not in tune or in alignment with the spell work you're doing could affect it, could reduce it, dull its results, or even cancel it entirely. So you do have to be mindful of that. But technically speaking, you don't have to. My in most cases, I it depends on the magic I'm doing. If I'm working with evocation, I usually don't do a cleansing. But then again, the Dragon's Flame ritual, anytime I use it, it also functions as a cleansing spell for the area and myself. So it's kind of a double whammy, which is real handy. Um, but yeah, I don't really overly worry about whether or not I'm doing a cleansing these days. British Welsh goddess. I'm gonna have to look into her because that name's bothering me. I know that name, TC, but I cannot. Like I said, it's like my head's just rusted shut. Hey, Halloween, good to see you. Well, thank you for sending love from work. Well, definitely pop into voice chat after work. I'm sure I'll bug you. I'm always about to bug people. Everybody's got to have a hobby, right? You know what, TC? Since you're around here so regularly, I'll see if I can't dig up some info between now and Friday's stream. So hopefully I can answer it then. Also, if you're in the Discord, shoot me a direct message and remind me, and I'll also send you the info through there if you want. Because, like I said, the names bother me. I know the name, and I don't know why. Normally, if I know a name, I've worked with them enough that I should be able to say something. Cloud gazing, yeah, you can use a bell. Energy moves with vibrations. That it's the exact way a singing bowl works, and they cleanse the area. So yeah, you can actually use a bell to cleanse an area. A lot of people do it and love it. I prefer energy style cleansings, like doing a ritual to clear the area. That way, I don't have to worry about smoke or noise or any of that. Um, and when it comes to singing bowls, I've just never been able to get them to really work. But bells, you can use. You can use a bell if you want. Though I would prefer you not to do it when your roommates are sleeping. They might get grumpy. Your Linda today is still trying to get her computer fixed, Rouse. We're all saddened by that. Though me and Linda have been in contact this week, and we are still attempting to get everything up and running. And hopefully, we will get back to the normal format of Magical Coffee Hour soon. Because I don't mind doing the solos and everything. I enjoy any time I get to come up here with y'all. But I do miss the chaotic fun that is Linda. I think we all do. So she's been able to get her computer to work somewhat to do a few video game streams for her Twitch, but getting the two of us linked up is still giving us a pain in the rear. So I will talk to her and see if we have a rough ETA this week. So maybe if I don't have her back next week, maybe I'll at least have an ETA for y'all. But don't worry, she's not gone. It's not like we've changed the format. Our goal, both her and I, are dead set are getting back to the original format. The Linda will be back. Oh, Discord's I don't even know how to explain it. It's like an online texting chat server thing. And Working Dragon Mystic has our own little Discord where we can come in, everybody can talk about Magic, ask questions. We're building up a really great community there, actually. And there's even a few voice chat rooms if you wanted to jump in there and voice chat. Not everybody likes to voice chat. Though I will say the voice chats are a little less moderated, so enter at your own risk. Um, even I don't behave in there. I try, but I fail. I fail badly. But you can usually find the Discord link below any of the videos in the description if you're interested in joining. It's just like a little chat room type thing. I will make sure she knows that, Jacob. I told her last week that you all said you missed her, and she definitely felt the love. Which that reminds me, she did say she was sending love. I think she told Discord, but I don't think she posted it anywhere else. So yeah, she knows y'all miss her, and she is working to get back. Animal Man, how long did it take me to open my psychic senses? My third eye was always wide open. I was that kid that my parents were always like, "You're imagining things. You're stupid. You're crazy. What did you eat?" Because I was seeing crap all the time. And my curiosity, due to my scientific mind, If I constantly was seeing the same things, but it wasn't under the same conditions, that was telling me there was more to it than just my imagination. So I went with that, and I didn't let them just block it out. Now, that said, some of my other senses were bad, like my hearing. My arcane hearing took months to develop, and the dragons really was annoyed with me. Because they'd be trying to communicate with me, and I'm not an emotional person, so you really can't use emotions to communicate with me well. And I was pretty much arcane deaf. So the first few months of my work in magic and with entities was them just trying to get my ears screwed on right. But once I got my sight and hearing working well together, the rest of them, I don't really know. I didn't pay attention to them. It's just like they developed naturally through my workings, because I don't ever remember actually trying to develop my touch, my taste, or any of those things. They just kinda came naturally throughout my practice. But my hearing gave me out it was a problem. My co-magician still gripes about that. Yeah, there's a few of us that pop into voice chat and just ramble on about stupid crap almost daily. But we have fun. Um, Tips for opening your third eye. Ooh, that's a good there is I have a, third eye opening candle spell that I use, and I know there's a meditation in the meditation course. I can't remember if I've put it on the YouTube channel, though. So, beyond those, if you go to the Arcane Senses video where we discuss the Arcane Senses, one of the things in there is we do talk about arcane sight. That will help you open up your third eye. And all the exercises for all the different arcane senses in that single video are things you can do to work on all your arcane senses. Now, all of your arcane senses do actually process through your third eye. It actually registers all of them. I know it's called an eye, but it does process all your senses. So that's a great place to get exercises that you can work on. And the more exercises you're doing, the quicker and easier to open. Also, if you're interested in it, you can go to workingdragonmystic.com. Click on the courses or classes tab, and that'll take you to the online school. We do actually have an arcane sight class that's free, no charge, because the ability to see entities and energy is so important. We made sure that that course would be available for free. And there's meditations and everything to help you with that in there. I think a lot of people run into issues with arcane senses on some level. I really do. For those who don't, I'm kind of jealous because they just kind of coast right on in. Well, Camden, there is a difference in using your arcane senses and seeing something paranormal, technically. Because what most people view as seeing something paranormal, you don't have to activate your third eye or anything. It's there. I have seen a few of those, so I don't really, but I don't count those as part of my arcane senses because arcane senses, you can open it and see things that aren't necessarily manifesting as paranormal activity. And they also help you with working with the planes and other things. But I do have a lot of friends that's seen a lot more paranormal stuff than me, which is kind of hard to believe considering the stupid stuff I've done. Well, we're gonna have to add a video on third eye to that. But till then, there is the arcane sight class, which goes far more in depth than any video I could do would. And we do have the Arcane Senses video, which also touches on it. And again, it is a free class. Yeah, join us in Discord. Join in the madness. I won't say we always make sense. There's a few posts that even we get there and check it the next morning. It's like, what was I thinking? I don't remember this. But it's a lot of fun. But you got to expect that kind of chaos. Linda hangs around. And me. You guys got some great questions. Y'all make my job easy. I show up here, it's like I give a little information, y'all just start hitting me with questions. It's great. I love it. And as always, you keep giving me ideas for new videos to shoot. I got a feeling I'm never going to run out of video ideas with you all, which is good. That means I got stuff to do. So, and I hope everyone had a wonderful, for those who, I guess, here in the States, I hope everyone had a wonderful holiday weekend celebrating. I know I did. There was lots of barbecue and grilling and fireworks. It was great. I don't know if it's in my bio or not, Camden. I do know it should be under this week's Jar Magic video, but I do not remember if I've got it in the bio. Though, if you go into the About Me section, there should be a Discord link, I think, in there, actually. Should look like a little orange. Is it orange? No, purple square. Purple square. I bet it's purple. Hold on a second. Let me see if I can grab y'all the link. We'll just simplify this, if I don't blow myself up in the process. Yep, Discord should be there. There is a Discord link in the About section. It's at the bottom. Just scroll down. But I'll also go ahead and drop it here in chat if I can. We all know I tend to screw this up when I try it. But that's okay. We come here to laugh at Drake. That's what we do. So let's see if I can get this to work. And did it work? I think it worked. Hot damn, look at that. I got it first try for a change. Cloud gazing, about jar spells and bags. What it is it's not necessarily containing the energy and locking it inside. You're putting the energy into an item and creating an item itself that acts like a beacon that radiates the energy and the purpose and the intent outward. You're creating a long-term talisman of sorts, and it radiates that purpose and that energy outwards constantly, drawing that change to you, or going out and creating that change, whatever it may be. So it's not that you're locking the energy away and it's not getting out. It's actually creating a permanent, long-term talisman that does that. And if you're doing the form of jar magic where not only do you create the talisman, but you continue to do like a candle spell, let's say for prosperity. And every time you burn that prosperity candle on the jar and you focus the energy on it, not only are you ramping up the energy that's immediately and quickly going out, but you're also pouring more energy into the jar further increasing the power of the talisman and creating increasing its duration. That's why jar magic's so great for long-term magic or magic where you know you need to ramp up more and more energy to manifest the change. Well, thank you, Jacob. I cannot take too much credit for that. The dragons taught that to me. I guess I can take credit for receiving the information and publishing it. But yeah, I that's one of my favorite rituals. There is a greater version of the ritual, which so far they won't let me put on YouTube. Um, and I think they're going to hold off until the Dragon Magic 103 class to even put it in the courses. But I'll have to see on that. So yeah, there is a stronger one. I am glad you guys are enjoying it. I'm glad the videos are helping you all. That's one of my favorite things, to check and see the messages where everybody's talking about the results they're getting and all that. That is some awesome stuff. And usually after the streams, you'll notice there's like a little side area. It's like after coffee hour or after research and ramblings. So if you still got questions or whatnot, you can pop into those particular ones and ask questions if you want. Or you can just stick it in general chat. I'm not too picky. But the Discord really does help people keep in touch. And it's actually one of the easier ways to get in touch with me. Also, the community's there to help answer questions too. All right, I think I need a refill on coffee. Any other questions? Or do I just need to ramble on a tangent here? I will say that the blog section of workingdragonmystic.com, for those of you who asked why it has not been updated in so long, we originally set that up because we didn't know what was going to happen with YouTube last year at the end because of that whole COPPA thing. But that said, I have been working on some blog ideas to write up and try and get that going for some little short snippets and thoughts that wouldn't really fit into a video. So for those who've been asking about the blog, yes, it will actually start being a regular blog. That's the reason most of the blog posts were actually just videos back in the day even. It was just kind of a second place to find us, just in case. It was just an insurance policy. But I really do want to try and utilize it to possibly talk about some entities, just talk about some random topics, and share things where, I don't know, it's just, does it sound weird to say blog format might actually make more sense for some subjects? But I am planning on getting that up and running and becoming more regular on it. I'm wanting to, my goal is to do at least one blog post a week on there. Jacob, to have a specific god or goddess on your mind all the time. That's actually not that uncommon. And generally speaking, when it happens, that means that entity might be reaching out to you, wanting to get your attention. So anytime that happens with me, I do a little reading on them and or do meditation and trance work to reach out and contact them and find out what's up, because they might be wanting to work with me. They might just have information they want to share temporarily. But a good chunk of my friendships with entities and deities have come from that exact thing. So I would say it's pretty normal. Okay, Roust, on circles. My view on circles is actually somewhat controversial because when I first started learning, everyone said they were protective. And I've worked with so many entities that can just waltz right through any circle I've ever seen cast. So that kind of killed the protective vibe. But I mean, they do hold back like random wandering spirits as far as Earth, but those are usually humanoid spirits, nothing really to worry about to begin with. Um, Now, for evocation, I actually use them sometimes and sometimes I don't. Do I view them as disrespectful? No, because I'm not putting them up as a protection. In fact, my circles are so big that the entity is usually invoked in the circle with me. So, I'm not trying to separate myself from the entity in any way. But circles definitely do work as a way to contain energy. So as you're putting that energy in, as you're casting the circle, and as you're pulling that energy in, it actually gives a place to contain it. Think of the difference between trying to gather a gallon of water in a bucket and just gathering a gallon of water while it's pouring out on the sidewalk. The container is so helpful. And that's really what a circle functions as largely in most cases, in my experience. I know people will disagree with that, and that's fine. But in all the testing me and my colleagues have done, I mean, most of them who practiced for 30 years, they never thought to question it until we just got a random hair. But that said, that gathered energy can make the evocation much easier. And I know people will have different viewpoints on it and everything, but yeah, for me, if it's an entity or I know well, I don't always use a circle because I have that connection with them. But usually, if it's a first time working with an entity, I will use a circle just because the extra energy is kind of nice. And then if I'm doing a working where the energy itself I think would be beneficial, I'd still use the circle. But I don't think they're a must or a have to. They can be helpful. And I don't find them disrespectful. Now, if you do a ritual where you cast a circle and you're like, "This is my space, stay the hell out of it," that's your space. You can only stay in that space. Um, that I could see as disrespectful. I could see why that would be viewed as disrespectful because you're basically inviting someone to your house and telling them to sit in that chair right there. Don't move, no matter what. You can't move. I wouldn't want to visit that person again. I wouldn't. Why do dragons take to the role of elemental beings? Well, it's because they adapt to whatever energy pattern that they work primarily with. So a lot of people do view them as elemental beings, but they literally adapt and adjust to whatever energy source they choose to work in most. So, for example, a fire dragon could actually go from fire to chaos very easily. It would just switch the type of job and work that it's doing, and it would even change its appearance and the energy vibration of it. Dragons that work with the Fae primarily, they won't have an element so much as they'll actually shift to that Fae energy, and those are actually the dragons most people refer to as Fae dragons. You see the same thing with celestial energy patterns and planetary energy patterns. There's actually dragons that work with the planets. So yeah, they're not so much elemental beings so much as they just adapt to the energy pattern they focus on. All things, loved one. That is awesome to hear. Thank you so much for the compliment, but more importantly, congratulations on your breakthrough and your progress. That is awesome. Raise a glass to that for sure. And thank you for sharing it because it's always awesome to hear that stuff. I love it. Rouse, triangles of manifestation. Oh man, we're gonna keep making the ceremonial magicians mad at me today. Um, if you go back and look at enough of the older grimoires, you'll find out that what they view as the triangle of manifestation was actually a mirror that instead of laying flat on the ground like this, it was lifted like this. So it was a scrying device that you could scry into that's outside your circle. Um, but it if you can't get full evocation, using a scrying mirror or scrying device can be very helpful because astral evocation is oftentimes easier than well, it is. It's a lot easier than full evocation. So it can be helpful, and I have used it, and I do use it sometimes. Sometimes I do. There's some entities that even actually tend to prefer it. So for them, if they make the request, I will use it. But by and large, my methods of evocation usually deal with me going to the astral for astral evocation or just full evocation with no triangle manifestation, no mirrors, and no circles of binding or anything like that. I've never used a circle of binding. The only time I ever did, we were doing research on the Goetia and we was following it to the letter, old school letter. Oh my God. Which was some of the most intense and pain in the rear work I've ever done. And just the size of the room we needed to draw out the circle alone was insane. That was a group effort. That was not something I could have done on my own. But we worked through that, and then we went and just tried a more simple, laid back evocation process that we knew worked. And in the group's opinion, it was unanimous. We saw better results and better dialogue between us and the entities, not using all the threats and the bindings and everything. That's not to say those aren't functional, but in our opinion, it just didn't work as well. And for those who practice it, I've always said if you're getting the results you want, I got no problem with it. You do you. But for me personally, I avoid them all around anymore because it's that respect thing for me. Respect is so important and goes so far. So unless an entity does something to make me fear it or actually disrespect it, I'm going to give it that respect. And I'm going to let it choose how it deals with me. And I'm not just going to take someone's word. So if someone's like, this entity's dangerous, I'll take that into consideration and I'll approach it cautiously, but I'm not going to hold the entity guilty of a crime that I can't not confirm that it committed. You know what I mean? Everyone deserves that respect. I like to go by a person's individual actions. But as far as how effective are they, they're pretty effective. I mean, if you can use a scrying mirror, it's a great way to work with evocation. In the Dragon Magic 102 class, we're actually going to be touching on using a scrying mirror for astral evocation. And it's once I actually do get the divination focused class up, that's something we will be talking about. Yeah, they are. Phone and TVs are basically scrying mirrors. In fact, when I travel, this right here is my scrying mirror. Look how shiny that is. That's basically a black mirror right there. This is my go-to travel mirror. That's why people's like, I have to buy one. No, you don't. Most people have a phone. I've not met anyone in the last 5 years who doesn't have a cell phone of some kind. Um, Computer monitors turned off would do the same thing. The big screen TV my wife decided to purchase. I use that for scrying when at home because big is really nice. Um, So yeah, I mean, scrying mirrors are pretty handy to get. But if you want one for your ritual area and you can't really afford one of these like $80 obsidian discs, just go you buy you a $5 picture frame. Take the back off of it, hit it with some matte black spray paint, a time or two, let it dry, put the back on it, and the unpainted side is now facing out. Perfect black mirror for $5. And they actually tend to work better in my experience than the ones you buy because you made it yourself. But that's my opinion. There are people who disagree. And you can also use water. So one of my favorite cheats is grab like a stainless steel mixing bowl, a small one, and just pour water in it. Boom, instant mirror. Yes, Rust, hard. It was, oh my, I would not do it again. I wouldn't. Fascinating experience, fascinating for the knowledge I gained for research purposes. But oh dear God, I would not do that again. I would not. And I told my friends and colleagues, don't ever ask me to take part in this again. This was way too much. What do they do when they're not summoned? They just do their thing. One thing people misinterpret is all knowing. The term all knowing would mean all knowing from our perspective, not theirs. Their perspective goes above ours, and at their level, their perspective, they're still learning things that we couldn't even comprehend. So other entities on their same level wouldn't view them as all knowing. So yeah, they're doing their things. They're learning. They're continuing to learn and grow. And they're also continuing to work toward whatever agenda or purpose it is they have. So like the dragons, when not summoned, they're constantly working to maintain the balance within the multiverse. So every entity has their own little things that they may work toward. Groups of them may have a general ideal that they tend to work toward as a team, utilizing their individual skills. But they actually go about what I guess you would assume is their life. It's true, they're more or less removed from time as we know it, but they still do their thing, which is fascinating because you start traveling the planes and you start wandering around their worlds and you realize they got a day-to-day thing they do as well. It really shakes up your reality when these powerful beings you work with, you realize they basically have jobs too. Yeah, I've honestly, Bryce, the only problems I've ever had with any evocation work or anything were on my fault only. I got what I asked for, literally. They didn't even try to twist it in any way. So no, I'd actually have to say I've not had any of the entities I've worked with try to do me wrong in any way. So I've been pretty lucky there. And I've been pretty open, admitting when I've done something stupid with you all because I think that's important. Because I think it's important to show that no matter how far down the road of experience you get, you're going to make mistakes. That's how we grow. But it's never been the entities that have done it. It's always been on me. And I do think some of them are too cautious. But for every person, you got to take your own caution and measure because I do things that are, I mean, I look back and it's like, what was I thinking? But at the same time, for knowledge and understanding, I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to jump in feet first and get myself dirty and find out what happens. Um, so it's that risk versus reward thing, and every magician has to measure out their own individual risk versus reward. And there's nothing wrong with that. The only thing wrong is if you insist someone else takes the same cautions you do, or the same risks on either way. You can't force someone else to work by your risk versus reward. Well, Jacob, definitely reach out to her. She's a wonderful goddess to work with. I mean, I work with her weekly at least. She's constantly around here. And yeah, I have actually used coffee for scrying. I have. Black coffee makes a great scrying medium. And it tastes good too. But yeah, definitely reach out to Freya if she's been on your mind like that. Um, well, these are entities that I've encountered. I've had a lot of people tell me so and so's kid is a black eyed child. And every time I meet them, they're not. They're not like these black soulless children that people talk about. They're not these evil children. But they do come across a little colder, but that's not really the same thing as black eyed children. Um, so one on one, personally, I can't say I've met one in the physical, but I have met them in the astral. I've met them in places that are haunted, and I'll admit they scared the shit out of me. For all the ghosts and demons and boogeymen that I will charge headfirst into to work with, even the nice, sweet, kind, caring children's ghosts, they spook me out. They just give me the creeps, the heebie-jeebies. I don't like them. That said, I do still try to work with children ghosts and help them in whatever ways I can. It's just that is like that's my that's the button that creeps me out. Um, Same thing with dolls. Like if I'm ever doing a paranormal investigation and I walk in a room with dolls and someone hasn't warned me, flashlight hits that doll, I will scream like a little girl. I will. They scare me. Don't like them. If I'm prepared, I can handle it. You just got to warn me ahead of time. But as far as seeing them in the physical, I never have. But I won't say it's impossible because just because I ain't experienced it doesn't mean it ain't there. That's always my motto. I always leave that open. I can only say that I have not encountered them in all my research in the physical. But there are plenty of kids that they're just colder emotionally than some people for whatever reason. But that's not the same thing. Because a lot of people would have considered me a black eyed child when I was younger. Good. I'm not alone here. I'm glad to know that. I'm glad I'm not alone with that doll thing because that is seriously, it freaks people out. They're like, you'll stare down a gun, but you're afraid of it. Yeah, I am. Dolls are creepy, man. That's pretty much my line. If I can avoid working with children, ghost, I will. But at the same time, many of the entities I work with, they're protectors of children. So when I have to, I have to. How do ghosts come to being? That's actually a tricky one, and that we could get into a whole philosophical on that. But so you have to look at what we call the soul isn't contained fully within this meat suit. It's only a small fraction of it. And when the meat suit gives out, that fraction's supposed to move on back to the whole, and a new piece comes down. So the entirety eventually cycles through. What a ghost is essentially one of two things. There are two things. One, it's an energetic imprint, not necessarily a full entity. It's just an imprint and an echo. Those are usually the ones that they just go through the same thing. They don't have any intelligence behind them. They're the ones that operate like a recording. The second type is where, for whatever reason, that piece of your soul doesn't go back to the whole and it sticks around. It hangs out here. And that's what becomes the ghost. This is why it's actually possible to evoke a past version of you, even though you're alive. It's because you're evoking that portion of your soul and that aspect, that identity, and that memory. Um, it's because the soul's far larger than just one meat suit. And when a ghost is here, it's that portion just didn't go back to the whole. Or to, in some cases, a lot of people's like, how does that work with the afterlife? Well, those portions can go to the afterlife of their choice that they've worked with during that time, until the entirety of you again comes back together, and then you can choose where you spend. I guess people would say where you spend your ascension at that point. Like I said, that's it in a nutshell, and I hope that rambling made sense. Tree magic. I work with tree magic very little. The most I actually do with it is I do work with land spirits quite a bit. So I'll work with those entities that deal with the trees in the area. But beyond that, like working with specific trees and utilizing those trees for specific magical properties, not so much. I really don't. I know a few people who do, and they get a lot of wonderful results from it. And there are times when, if I'm making a talisman or something, if I have access to a particular type of wood that would attune to that purpose, I'll use that type of wood. But it's one of those things that's lower on my repertoire just because of accessibility. And I generally prefer to use scrap wood for my talismans. I'm not one that I don't like to go out in the woods and go hacking on trees. But if I'm hiking and I find deadfall, I will use that. And I do use some. I don't know if you'd consider it tree magic, but I do use some wood where, like if you saw my magical properties of what was it, mesquite. I will actually do sigil spell work and spell work on a piece of wood that I then put into my smoker to imbue that into the food I'm cooking. So that's also a way that I utilize it. That's actually probably the most common way that I would utilize tree or wood magic. Hey, young lion, good to see you again. No problem, Miss Smith. I actually plan to do a video soon showing how I do that. Because I've had people want me to show how I do my pork shoulders as well as actually demo me doing the wood magic. And well, that gives me an excuse to sit out in the backyard and smoke a pork shoulder while making a video. Win, 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 win. Everybody wins. So that's definitely a video that's going to be coming. Is there any entities I would recommend not working with? Okay, this is a tricky question, Rouse, but a good one. Technically speaking, on a broad spectrum of that question, the answer I would give is no. But you have to take into a caveat on that because, for example, if you're first coming into Magic and you want to work with Chaos Dragons, I will recommend you not do that. Not because Chaos Dragons are bad entities, but their energy in of itself and what it does can really screw your life up if you're not ready to work with it. Because it's intense. It's going to just come in and start making change, and it's going to do so in such a large, drastic way that it could really mess with your crap. And ironically, we was talking about this in Discord today or yesterday, I think it was. There was a YouTuber back in the day I used to follow. Some of you may have watched his channel, Psycho Sorcerer. Great channel, absolutely great. And I loved it because he did start out with a very scientific view of magic like mine, but he also started in a very cautious way. And when he decided to ramp it up, he went from very cautious to working with Tiamat. And Tiamat, if you look at it from a dragon magic perspective, she is indeed a chaos dragon. And she shook his worldview up to the point where, to the best of my knowledge, he got scared off of magic. But he dove too deep into a pool he was not ready to swim in. So when it comes to what entities do I not recommend you work with, it's more of do your research and make sure you're ready to work with that type of entity. And if you actually find warnings about their energy and how harsh they are, take it seriously. Actually, you know what? For example, this is actually Asenath Mason's Grimoire of Tiamat. I don't know if this was the book he was working from, but this is built off of a Clifothic working as well as the traditional religions as far as was been able to research. But literally on page 1, I've got it highlighted here. That whole section, that's one giant warning of do not dabble casually in this. She started on page 1 with a big giant warning of this is not casual. Stay away. Because that's what those entities can do. They can create those massive changes. So if you do your research and you're aware of the entity and you proceed with knowledge and wisdom and caution, and I'm sorry if I sound like a hypocrite using the word caution, but believe it or not, even I show caution. Not as much as I should. In most cases, you'll be okay. But don't jump into the harsher stuff until you're ready, because it's going to drag up emotional stuff that you should have dealt with in shadow work, and parts of yourself that may be, certain traumas that you've not really healed. Maybe you just kind of blocked them off and you're not ready to deal with them yet. Instead of just bringing them in one at a time so you can deal with them and heal, there's some entities that just open up all the floodgates and they come crashing in at once. And if you're not ready to deal with it, man, that can mess you up. Yeah, Bernotis, it was last night you and I talked about that. So that's really my thing. Beyond that, I've not particularly met one entity that I can say I just would never work with that entity. There's some that I don't really get along with and I don't enjoy working with, but there's times when they are the best person for the job. And I have enough respect for them. I can set aside my personal feelings and them and I can still work together. But that's just like any person in the world. There's some people you like, some people you don't. And that's one reason I continue to do research on different styles of entities and stuff, because I do want to know, is there an entity out there somewhere that one of my students may ask about one day? And I want to know that. But so far, I've not encountered one that I would mark as off limits. It's just more of how you approach it and are you ready for it? Yeah, Tiamat's rough. I've worked with her. I have to admit, I do want to work with her some more. But my first encounters with her were, they were very, 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 very stormy waters. And there's actually part of me I've read through this book, but I've not worked through the path working, so I can't really recommend it. But it is definitely on the draconian path, not the dragon magic path. So it is harsh. But when I get time, I want to work through that path working. Welcome, Anubis. That's okay. We all have to sleep sometime. Any personal gnosis with Leviathan? Yeah, actually. See, there for a while, I thought Leviathan and Jormungandr would actually be the same entity. And it's because of that that I did eventually find out that Leviathan and Jormungandr are not the same entities. They have similar traits, but they're not the same entities. Leviathan himself, some people say herself, is the dragons do recognize this entity as a dragon. For those who's going to ask that question and wonder, but it's what you would view as a cross element dragon. So it's both water and chaos combined, and is a fascinating entity to work with. It's not one I've spent as much time as I'd like with, though. But definitely, yes, a real entity. And for those who work with it as a demonic ruler, honestly, with that chaos aspect and how ramped up it is, I totally understand that. Totally get that. And it's also definitely an entity that it's so fluid and adaptable because of that water and chaos mix that nailing it down into say this is Leviathan would be so freaking difficult. But yeah, I've had some dealings with Leviathan. Most of my workings have honestly been more toward Jormungandr because of my Norse work. But I would like to actually get back and work some more with Leviathan. If you have their full name, you could utilize it to some effect quite successfully. But there's more to it than just that because your full legal name, though it might have some energy over you, it's not a what's viewed as true name, the name that belongs to your soul, and that's really the one that has the most power. Um, because your name that you use here in the physical world, you can change that at will. It's the name that has the most meaning to you that's going to have the most power. So, for those who don't know, my birth name was not Drake. And if anyone was to use the name on my birth certificate, because at this point I still haven't done the paperwork, they would have no power because it has no meaning. Um, but that said, you can use the full name to get a good connection. But due to those few limitations, most of the time, it's not as strong as if you were to have that piece of hair, that fingernail, or a photograph. But it will give you that sympathetic connection that you're looking for. Does that help? And then you have some paranoid magicians like me who's literally cursed their name. So my name in both cases is actually cursed to backfire if ever used against me. Because I'm just paranoid like that. Oh, no problem. It's a good question. You guys just keep coming up with great questions. So we're a little over our hour here. So I will go ahead and start running through some what we got going on. The Dragon Magic 102 class, it is back on schedule. Yay. This Tuesday, we got the video on Ingus Salor coming out, the Draconic Ruler of Fire. So for those who've been waiting on that, that's coming. I'm hoping this week to get an update on how the Chaos Ruler art is going. The artist has been working with the Chaos Ruler for some time now to try and get that going. Okay. That's a bigger process. I might actually have to do a video on that, Cloud. I might. You could do some simple protection magic focused on your name. That would be an easier method. That would. You know what? I'm not sure I would actually know the answer to that, young lion, because when I want to talk to Paimon, I work with Paimon. I enjoy working with Paimon. Maimon, I've worked with, but not a lot. And to be honest with you, at this moment, without checking my journals, I'm not even sure I could think of what he does. Um, and I don't really try to go in like I work with entities as individuals, so I don't try to focus and find what you might call their equivalent anyway. So when you're trying to draw those particular correlations, I might be the worst person to ask unless I have my research notes in front of me so that I can actually flip back and forth and be like, okay, we got that point, we got that point, we got that point. Because my brain just literally separates them as individuals. The once it goes live, the Dragon Magic 102 will be on the online school, and it's just like the 101. Once it goes live, you can sign up, start taking the class immediately because the class it's all video course. It's work at your own pace, Miss Smith. So there will be that. Now that said, for those of you who are my Patreon members, the tiers that say early access to classes, those people will get a invite roughly anywhere from 3 days to a week early, so they can actually sign up for the class, get started early, because that's one of the perks of being a Patreon supporter. But once it goes live, yeah, the signups will be open. I usually try to make sure it goes live at midnight so that if you wanted to, you could literally just stalk the online school until it goes live and jump straight in and get to work. Now, it does pick up right after the Dragon Magic 101. So if you've not completed the 101 class, you will need to complete that. Because in order to save time in filming and just refilming the same videos, it's just I keep pointing you back to the videos in that course. Well, if you're wanting a money dragon, X Boonwell's your guy, which there's a video on him on the channel. X Boonwell is a wonderful dragon to work with if you're wanting money. Yeah, and that's one thing. The school allows me to actually put info out and detail it in ways YouTube won't let me. So, but that said, I still try to keep all the courses reasonable. So there's none of this like $300 prices. I'm trying to do it so all the Dragon Magic classes stay within that $30 to $40 range. If I absolutely have to, due to some reason, the max I will cap out will be $50. But my goal is to keep them. My personal goal is to keep them all in that $30 range. I want them to be affordable and available to anyone interested in learning. That's my personal goal. The meditation class, that thing was massive. That was also my first stint into jumping into doing online courses, and we did have it priced at $100, and it's worth it. But I'd still, after a while, I just couldn't deal with it myself. I was like, no, we're dropping it. So we slashed it just so I could sleep at night. What do you mean by extra dimensionals? I need a little clarification on that one. Because some people would consider alternate planes extra dimensional, and by that definition, yeah, lots. And so I have to ask for a little clarification there, Animal Man. But if you are interested in signing up as a Patreon member, there's a link over in the About section, and there should be a link below all the videos once they go live. Yeah, actually, see, the rulers are broad spectrum dragons. They control the bulk of the energy current, if you will. But the dragons under them would be viewed as what's called specialty dragons. And this is actually part of what the 102 course really focuses on. And where a specialty dragon actually has a focus and a specialty, they actually end up able to create change quicker and in sometimes larger ways than the rulers because of that focus. So it's kind of like the difference between bird shot out of a gun that just scatters and might not do much damage at all, and a very accurate rifle shot. So you're going to get that accuracy and that focus. So specialty dragons are really great for that. So yeah, if you're looking for money, X Boonwell is. I would actually recommend him over Terrafauna. Aliens directly, no. As far as like grays and such like that, no, I have not. There for a while, I was doing some research into aliens. The problem was my research led me into different UFO groups, and I met a level of weird and paranoia and conspiracy theory that I just could not cope with. And it honestly left me with such a bad taste for a while that I completely dropped my research, put it on the shelf, and went on to research other things. And I kept telling myself I was going to go back to it. So far, I have not. I apologize for that. But I do have an interest in it. I do. And it's one of those things. Me and the wife will watch a bunch of the alien programs and the UFO programs. And I always think of that research. But I've got so much on my plate. I want to get to it. I just don't know when I'm going to get to it, sadly. I need to get a hold of one of those immortality potions or something because there's just research piling up that I'm never going to get to do. I don't know. Maybe I'll start passing my research journals off to students because I don't think I'll get to this. And it's like, here, you pick up where I left off. So that would be one interesting one. Cloud gaze, that is a wonderful question. And in my experience, yes. In fact, most entities that you work with, they don't want to do things for you. They would rather teach you and build you up to their level. They don't want to keep you down. They want to build you up. And I've really first ran into this with the dragons, though they weren't as vocal about it. I didn't realize what they were doing. But when I started working with the Norse entities, they get very vocal about learning to do for yourself. So if you're just asking them to help you or lift you up, you're going to find out very quick. They're like, no, 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 no. We're going to teach you to do it, and they will only help you so much so that it moves you forward, so that you're constantly building yourself up because they want you on their level. They don't want you to be reliant on something or someone else. So yes, it's actually possible. Yeah, that's what the mead jar is for, right? Well, if you stick me in a jar, how am I going to turn pages on books, people? We're going to have to, okay, if you're putting me in a jar, I need at least some servants or something to, hold the books in front of me and turn the pages for me. So, yeah. All right, so we're going to go ahead and wrap up here. Wonderful questions tonight, everyone. Absolutely wonderful. If you do have any other questions, pop over to the Discord, drop it in the after Magical Coffee Hour chat, and I will answer it. I'll be over there for probably an hour after this. What's going to happen is I usually finish this up. I get it posted, do the finalization, so YouTube will finish its re-upload, so the replay is available. And then after that, I move straight over to the Discord. And then I'll stay there for a good hour and bug y'all. But do check out the video Tuesday on Ingus Salor. Wonderful dragon, great guy to work with. And of course, we're going to have a live stream Friday. And I am going to do my damnedest to get Linda back here for y'all. I know y'all miss her. I miss her too. We're going to get that going. And if you haven't, if you're interested in any of the classes, go over to workingdragonmystic.com, check them out. I'm wanting the 102 course for Dragon Magic to be out no later than mid-October. That's my goal. No earlier than mid-September. So if you're wanting a ballpark of what we're shooting for, there you go. And if you are wanting to take that course, be sure you take the Dragon Magic 101 course. I don't want you to jump into one course and not know what you're doing. It seems like there might have been something else I wanted to say, but can't think of it. Otherwise, y'all have a wonderful evening. Enjoy the rest of your weekend and have a wonderful week. Until Friday, y'all take it easy. I'll see you then.